Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to another Hangout. It's Evan. I'm excited to be here. I've got Miranda with me from Thinkific.com. She has an awesome website, a YouTube channel. She wanted to interview me for it, and I thought, let's do it. But let's put it as a live on my channel so you guys could learn a little bit about her as well. Miranda, welcome aboard.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, I mean, this is your interview, your show. I'm a guest. However you want to
Okay,
introduce it and run away with it, it's all yours.
awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Evan. Yeah, so I'm Miranda. I'm here from Thinkific. I am COO and co-founder of Thinkific, and Thinkific is an online course platform helping independent experts, speakers, authors, coaches create and deliver their own courses online. We've been doing this for a few years. We've got tens of thousands of customers who are using our platform. But what that means is that every day I'm very fortunate to be able to help and to work with small business owners, such as many of yourselves, in building their businesses. And as a business geek at heart, my dream, sort of my dream scenario where I get to build my business, but my business is literally helping everybody else build their businesses. So, Evan, I was really thrilled to get to talk to you because I know that a lot of what you're passionate about is very close to what I'm passionate about. And I thought it would be cool to have a conversation about how do we help elevate and grow the entrepreneurs that you and I both serve based on the advice of entrepreneurs who have gone before them.
I love it. That's a great thesis to start on, and I love the energy and vibe that you put up too, and the obvious love you have for the work that you're doing. So this is an honor and a pleasure for me.
Fantastic. So, Evan, you just published your latest book. I know that it just hit Amazon just before Christmas. So, tell us about your book. Like, tell us about what is the inspiration. Tell us what you wrote. Give us the rundown.
So the book is called The Top 10 Rules to Success, and what I did was I pulled the most popular top 10 rules from my YouTube channel. So for those of your audience, I guess, who may not know what I do, I have got a popular YouTube channel. We have entrepreneur content every day going live, and just crossed 1 million subscribers last year. And one of the
Congratulations.
most yeah, thanks, it's fun. um, one of the most iconic series on the channel is the Top 10 Rules to Success, where I take a different person every week, 10 different things that they have said, kind of pearls of wisdom that people can apply to help their business grow. And last year I turned it into a book. And so we're taking all the lessons that all these, the most popular people on the channel have said and condensed it down to book format. So instead of necessarily having to watch a 20 or 40-minute video, you can see 2 rules on each page. And my goal is I'd like people to not just read it like a book, but to read 1 page a day, so that you have, 2 of the greatest things Steve Jobs or Oprah Winfrey has ever said. Just read that 1 page, 2 ideas on that 1 page. Think about how to apply it to your business, and then do that again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And if you do that, if you at least, this works for me, this is why I'm doing it for others. If you wake up and you read 1 page a day and you fill your head with 2 genius ideas that make you think bigger, if you did that every day, then your life will look totally different a year from now, because you just can't help but grow when you're around people who are thinking big.
Very cool. Very cool. I always love diving into specific examples. Can you share with us perhaps a specific example of one of those little tidbits that either you or somebody that you've talked to was able to actually translate that into a change on that day and how that might have impacted them?
Yeah, so I look at one of them, of raise your standards as an example. So that's one of the most common rules that come up over and over and over again. And in the book, what I did was, we have the 40 people and their 400 rules, and then because it's 10 for each, 40, 400. We took the 10 most common ones too, the ones that are repeated over and over and over and over and over again. And a recent example is raise your standards. A number of people in the book say it, just in different ways. I was going through like the Tony Robbins section, and that's one that he's a big fan of, and just made me think of my channel. And it's like, okay, I got to raise my standards. How do I make my videos even better? A lot of people will look at my content and say, wow, it's so amazing. We love it. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, for this free content on YouTube. But for me, it's just a start. And so I took a deep dive into my top 10 series as an example and looked at, okay, where are people dropping off? How can I make it better? How can I make it a Hollywood movie if that's the standard now, instead of just doing what we're doing, right? And so kind of pushing that comfort zone to set the new bar. Because I think a lot of people look at my content, there's a lot of people who are copycatting it now and doing their own versions of it, which is great. But now it's like, okay, what's the next? What's the next? What's the next? And so that was a recent one that that I read and applied.
Very cool. Very cool. One of the things that I often, like when I'm talking with new business owners in particular, is that sometimes they can find it really overwhelming finding some of the advice not very accessible. So sometimes it's things like raise their standards, but they're really just sort of in the down and dirty, trying to work in their business instead of working on their business. Do you think that there's any particular advice that you would give to somebody who's brand new in business and really struggling between that world of working on their business versus working in their business and trying to manage that?
Yeah. So first I would say, and this is a practice for me too, a lot of these lessons that you'll hear, you feel like you've heard it already. So it's easy to brush off something like raise your standards, or easy to brush off follow your passions, easy to brush off the rules that keep coming up over and over again. They almost come off as cliches. So what I try to do is I'll read one page a day and then I'll spend a couple of minutes just thinking about it. It's like, okay, I've heard that before, raise my standards. But okay, if I had to apply that to my business, what would that look like? And then I always find that there's a way to take that lesson and change something. And so for any entrepreneur who's kind of struggling between the in and the on, first off, recognize that that's normal. Like, that's okay. You know, especially at the beginning of a business, you're everything. You're everything from the CEO to the janitor in your business. And I gave myself too hard a time at the beginning in my business because I felt like I should be having more success with all the work that I was putting in, and I wasn't getting as far as I'd like. And I took that personally. My lack of success in my business initially made me personally feel like a failure, and I was too afraid to tell my friends and reach out for help and say I'm struggling, and I had no money. I was too embarrassed. And so, you know, if that's where you are, that's okay. Like, everybody goes to this point. You can get through it. Now let's get through it. You know, we have to, how do we actually get through it? First off is I try to look at what my goals are and then see, does my schedule map to my goals? Here's what I want to accomplish. You're not going to, if you're not doing the work to accomplish your goal, you just have a dream. Like, this is just a dream that's never going to happen. You have to look at your calendar and say, okay, this is what I do in a week. Here's how I chunk up my time. If I did this in my calendar every week and I grinded it out, and every month and every year, you know, I was doing that, what's in my calendar, will it lead me to accomplishing my goals? And for too many people, the answer is no. They have these goals, but the work they're doing do not map to their ambitions. And so anytime I want to make a change, it always has to start with, yes, the vision, but then my calendar. And so what I encourage every entrepreneur to do is you need to make sure you're spending time. I call it CEO time on the business. If you are transitioning from being a part-time entrepreneur to a full-time entrepreneur, you're just trying to figure out, how do I get out of my job and make my side hustle a thing? Then you need to make sure there's consistency, that every single day you're doing something to grow your business, even if it's for half an hour, every single day. You can't take a day off. You need to build the momentum to get going. And sometimes that's hard when there's life and tiredness and everything else in the way. But if you're talking about moving from in the business to on the business, moving from like a solo entrepreneur to then building up a team and building up an enterprise, you need to schedule what I call CEO time, at least once a week, if not multiple times per week, ideally as a first chunk of time, where you're spending 90 minutes uninterrupted, not answering email, not being distracted by social media, and to say, what is the highest value that I could bring to the growth of my company? And I used to ask myself, I would ask this to myself on my walk to the office would be, what's the highest value I can bring to the office today, to my business? What's the highest value? And then I would go and do that task for 90 minutes. And then the rest of the day explodes. Then you're back to in the business, and you can't just ignore that. There's a fire, you have to put it out. Like, you got to do that stuff, right? You have to get the order done for the customer. I don't think it just happens overnight where you just make that drastic shift, but it's It's a slow movement towards, and it's an intentional movement towards. And so carving out that time, at least 90 minutes a week. Monday morning may not be the best day to do your CEO time, right? Like your day might explode on you already the first thing. But I would find that time every week, and eventually you want to move towards more of that. So you move from 90 minutes once a week to twice a week to every weekday, to then eventually spending more and more time on it.
I love that. I love that. And I think especially being the beginning of the year, people are still, thinking about resolutions and like, how do I be better, or like do things in a different way than maybe have in the past. And so I really love this idea of the 90-minute CEO time to really be intentional about what is the goal that you're striving towards, and are you taking the action that you need to take in order to ultimately achieve that? Because you're right. I think that oftentimes, I think that we often fool ourselves into thinking that because we're being busy, that we're actually achieving something towards our goals. And the one thing that I would probably add is making sure that 90-minute time is about actually planning what are the activities that you're going to do, as opposed to just saying, great, I got in 90 minutes of planning time, but then I'm not acting on it. Because I know for myself, I'm often guilty of working on a plan and sort of fooling yourself into thinking that that's actually taking action. And so feeling like you've made progress, but until you actually are enacting the plan and doing what you said, like what you've now planned to do, you haven't necessarily made any actual real movement. So let's go through a journey. So we start like, oh, this is fun. So like we kind of started to talk about I love your comment about if you just got like, a plan for something that you want to achieve, but you're not yet working on it, then that's just a dream at that point. It's not yet like a business or anything like that. And we kind of want to, you want to get to side hustle, then you want to get potentially to like where you're growing and then adding a team and now scaling a business that is no longer necessarily new. So let's kind of walk through that whole journey. So we've talked a little bit about the very beginning parts of the journey. And I think that at the point where somebody is going from, let's say, side hustle to full-time hustle, that can be a really scary thing. So again, I know that, I'm often working with entrepreneurs who have started something on the side and they're building it up. And there's that tipping point where you kind of just need to decide, it's like, okay, like, am I actually going to leave my day job to do this? And that's always a scary leap. And you kind of, there's a little bit of like, if you jump, will the parachute appear kind of situation. What about advice at that stage? Like, I'm sure that you've gone through that stage yourself.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, at least for me, well, one, you have to understand what your personality type is. Some people, the only way they do something is if they go all in.
Yeah.
Like, you have to quit your job. You have to have no way out. You have to burn the boats. And that's the only way you commit to doing something. That's not me. I like testing things. I like seeing how something's working. I don't like just throwing everything away and forcing myself to go down a new path. So if you're doing a side hustle, then you've already kind of committed that I'm going to do this thing on the side. I'm not going to quit my job yet. I want to build it up. What I recommend to people in that scenario is when you get to the point in your side hustle where you're making enough money to survive, that's when you quit. So you have enough money to pay the bills, your internet bills, your food bills, your rent. You're not living it big. You're not buying Lambos. You're not doing anything crazy, but you could survive. Because what kills most businesses is that they run out of money.
Yep.
They quit too soon because they think they're going to do really well, right? And then they don't have enough runway to succeed. And then 3 months later, they're back at the job that they hated. And so that's the biggest risk. You need to be able to get to the point where you can continue to survive, continue to build this business up. And so if you can't survive yet, that becomes really risky. The hard part is, okay, if I can survive, I don't want to take the step back. Like, I'm making a good income from my job. I'm making an okay side income from my business enough to survive. But now I've got 2 incomes. I got to go way back to focus on my business. And the way to do that, at least for me, is I think about regret. I think about, how long have I been in this job for? How long am I willing to stay here? Like, am I going to be here for another 5 years? Am I going to be here for another 10 years of not working on my business full time, not committing to it, and sticking in this job just because I get a half decent paycheck? And so whenever I'm afraid of doing something, I use regret to make the fear even bigger, in the opposite direction. So it's like making one fear so huge that this little fear in front of you doesn't matter. It's like I have a little hangnail that's really bothering me, so like I'll punch myself in the arm, and then you don't feel a hangnail anymore. And so that idea of, okay, yes, it's painful to leave that job that's paying me some money, but am I going to regret not making the decision? Like if I'm 100 looking back on my life and I'm back to this moment, will I regret not jumping when I had the chance? Because maybe you never take the chance. Maybe you never go and do that business. And then you see somebody else making millions of dollars off of your idea, right? Well, it wasn't yours. Like, you didn't do it and they did. So they deserve to win. And that's on you for not stepping through. I think with all of these businesses, we have windows of opportunity. We have a window where everything kind of lines up perfectly for us. For me right now, that's YouTube. For me, it matches what I love doing with what the audience cares about, with video, everything. Like, all the stars are aligning perfectly for me. So the window is open. I'm making 3 videos a day on my channel because I need to push as hard as I can while I have this moment of certainty, because that window is going to close. In 5 years, there may not even be a YouTube anymore. Right? We're going to be on to something else. There's going to be robots everywhere. We're going to be in VR. We're going to have contact lens. Like, the world will change. And if the world doesn't change, I'll change. Like, I mean, I want to do it like this anymore. My life situation may have changed. So understand that for anybody in that situation, you have a window right now, a limited window to take action on whatever plan you have in front of you. And if you don't, then you're likely going to live the rest of your life in regret. And so for me, I make that pain so big that then it forces me to take action in a positive direction.
I love that. And when you put it like that, it's really powerful, because you certainly, like that word regret, and you can feel it. Like, even when you just say it, you're like, oh, like, I know how that feels, and I don't ever want to feel that. So I think that, like, that's actually an interesting, like, so you said, like, you're doing 3 a day. Many of our audience they're coaches, they're consultants, they're authors, they're speakers, like, they're hustling every single day. And thankfully we have, like, so many people who really are doing a ton in their business. Their businesses are really healthy. They're adding often online courses so that they can then start to scale a little bit more. But one of the things that I think that a lot of times people struggle with at that stage is trying to figure out, like, how do you then, like, jump the chasm, or, like, how do you then level up? Like, when you're full, like, you're working your, like, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. You've got clients, you've hired a VA, you might have hired somebody else, and you're in it and you're running it and you're busy. But then it becomes hard to say, like, okay, great, like, now am I at capacity? Because when we're that kind of business owner, where it's like, I'm not selling widgets, like, I don't have an unlimited number of widgets. I'm really selling me and my knowledge and my expertise. So how do people then level up? And maybe tangentially to that is, like, what are other than, like, sitting down and having the heads down CEO time with themselves, what are some of the ways that you've used personally, or have seen other people use, to level themselves up, to almost get them outside of their own head when they're in that stage?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you first have to understand what your ambition is and how big a business you want to build. Bigger is not necessarily better. It has to fit within the types of offering you want to have and the lifestyle that you want to run as well. If you're talking about a service provider, there's lots of solo service provider consultants, if you're really good, who can charge a couple hundred thousand dollars a year, make a decent income, be a solo entrepreneur, have a nice lifestyle, and that's what they want. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you don't need to level up. You don't need to build a multi-million-dollar business if you don't want to. So, like, do you want that? Then in terms of scaling, you have a couple ways to do it. One, you just continue to charge more. So whatever industry you're in, you're the best. You keep being the best. You keep charging more. Tony Robbins charges $1 million a year for his coaching, and he takes a piece of your business. Right? People may not be able to afford your rates, so that's maybe where you become an investor in their business. Like, part of your rates are, I'm going to own 10% of your company. If you're a fantastic business coach and you really want to see your clients grow, maybe your model isn't, I'm going to work with 50 different clients and talk to them for 1 hour a week or half an hour a week. Maybe the model is, I'm going to pick 2. I'm going to take no salary. I'm going to own 20% of their businesses, and I'm going to really help these guys. but does that map to your ambitions? Is that what you want to do, right? You could bring on a team, just like in a lot of legal firms. You know, you've got the senior partners, and then you got the junior partners, and then the clerks, and all the way down. How many layers do you want to make? If you're a business coach, you could be the main business coach, and then you've got people underneath you. Tony Robbins has it. He has his coaching programs for $1 million a year, and then you can hire a Tony Robbins certified coach for whatever that person would cost. You could go products. You could say, you know what? I have great knowledge. I want to get out of my head, and I want to create ebooks. I want to create YouTube videos, and I want to create content or courses or events, packages. So there's lots of ways to grow. It's really just figuring out what is the one that kind of fits your ambition and your lifestyle the best. Me as an example, I like scale. I want to do things at scale. I want to change the world in a massive way. And so I don't do coaching. I get a lot of fulfillment out of coaching, but I don't want to do the one-on-one coaching. So it's a choice. I don't want to build my business that way. So I build it through YouTube videos. I build it through books. I would rather hit a lot of people in a light way on a consistent basis than to help 5 people in a really deep way and not have in my view, that's not as big an impact. Now, somebody may disagree with that. That's my perspective, right? And so like you have to figure out yours and go all in on that. In terms of how do you get out of your own head? How do you find the models? How do you understand? It's just researching. It's just figuring out who has done this and what are their models. So as an example, I've invested into a local entrepreneur. Her name is Lily. She is a coach, and she's doing coaching because I don't want to do coaching. She's doing coaching for people in my network. And one of the very first assignments that I built for her was she wants to build $1 million company. That's hard to do as a coach. It's hard to do as like you could, if you said 300,000, you could get there just off coaching, but $1 million off of coaching is hard to do. But that's her ambition. So I said, okay, go find all the different thought leaders and experts and coaches who are building $1 million plus businesses, and then look at what they're selling. And so some of them have books, some of them are doing it through their speaking, some of them are doing it through multi-level, layered of coaching services. And then what's the one that fits best for you? And so if you're looking at, like, if you're a coach, then go look at Tony Robbins and go look at Brian Tracy. And like Brian Tracy writes a new book every 6 months. That's how he does it, right? He loves to write. So do you want to write? Do you like that model? No, I don't want to write books. Okay, great. Forget that, right? Tony Robbins, right? All of these people. Brene Brown, whether she's a coach or not, right? Like all these people have their own e-courses and packages, and just they give you the models for how they're doing it. And you don't have to be the next Brene Brown. You're going to be you. You're going to be the best you. But you could pull something from Brene and something from Tony and something from Simon Sinek and something from Gary Vaynerchuk and all these people who are giving expert advice if you're in that business. And then you see, okay, which of these am I going to go with to say, I'm planting my flag. This is what I want to do.
Great. I love that you mentioned, that's really helpful. I love that you mentioned scale. I am also very much a scale person. The reason that I'm not doing one-on-one consulting very much like you is because I love the fact that having built this business is that we're able to help literally tens of thousands of people. And I find that personally rewarding. With the kinds of entrepreneurs and people that tend to be creating online courses, one of the very consistent threads is around relationships. So the people who are building online courses really are often caring about the outcome of students. So it's not just about the one-way delivery of information, but it's about how do I create a medium that a student can learn and actually put into action what I'm teaching. And so it's a little bit like it's more two-way, and relationship is really one of the key focuses there. And I find it like I'm fairly fascinated with the idea of scaling relationship powered businesses where maybe we started off coaching and we had that one-on-one, and now we want to move beyond that, but being able to maintain some of those really like the personal connection pieces of the one-to-one, but doing that at scale. Do you have any comments or thoughts about that?
Yeah. If I look at my YouTube channel as an example, we get hundreds of comments every single day on the channel. I believe those comments need to get a response. Just like if somebody calls you at your shoe store, you pick up the phone and you respond. Like, these are your customers. For many people on YouTube, they respond to every comment at the beginning because they only getting one comment a day, so it's easy. But as you scale up, like there is just not enough time in the day for me to actually respond. Like if I spend
Yeah.
all day long responding to comments, there's not enough time. But so you build a team. And so you need to hire people on your team to be able to fit the same values that you do, right? So here's what we stand for. We're believing in entrepreneurs. Here's the mission of the business. I need you to embody this. And they do. And they respond as themselves, but they're not saying they are Evan, but it's the brand. And so people are getting the connection, even though it's not me personally. Like the vision and the brand is being communicated through the team. There's communication like this. Like I make videos. I had on my channel this morning an AMA, Ask Me Anything. We get on, we got, a couple thousand people online. They're asking me questions. It's your chance to connect with me one-on-one. And I don't answer every question. We get too many questions and time for, but hopefully people still get value from other people's questions and feel connected to me. Through all the content that I'm making with YouTube, but then the behind the scenes with Snapchat and Instagram, people feel like they know me, even though I have no idea who they are. And that's the real power of building that personal brand and connection. Like just because you're not meeting people one-on-one, it doesn't mean that you can't make them feel something. So I was filming yesterday at my studio for my channel, and people were coming to say hi. When I film, people come say hi. Some guy drove, I'm in Toronto. This guy drove from Detroit, 5 hours, had to get a passport to come into Canada.
Amazing.
Just to come and say hi and like take a picture. And so like, oh my God, you drove this far. This is crazy. And so I spent a little extra time with him I was in awe. But some people are super local and some people like will drive for a couple hours to come in. Why do they do that? They feel that they know me, that I'm helping them. Even though again, like this is the first time I'm meeting them. And sometimes that's scary. They're like, how's your wife Nina? And how's your dog Timo? And how's your son Hayden? Is like, I don't even know who you are. Right. But like, because I'm creating that connection, right? Like even here in the video, I've got my wife, I've got my son, I'm sharing personal things, and you have to be careful about how much you share, and obviously involving your family in that decision too. So I think you can do it by bringing on a team. I think you can do it by you sharing your story and using media to help you get the message out. And then I think you can involve your community as well to help reinforce the vibe. So on all my Hangouts, I have a couple of moderators, administrators who are kind of champions of the community. Like they've been involved in a lot of the Hangouts. They're always positive. They embody believe, even though they're not officially part of my team, but they like being a part of the community, and they help answer questions. They help police when need be. They help guide people to resources. And so I think as you scale, it's a really important mission, because you don't want to lose the heart and soul of your business. And I think that's the role of the leader, to get out in front of it and to design the culture so that that exists, so that every touch point with your company, whether it's mass media consumption like this or with somebody on your team or in the community, they're still getting the same feeling that you want them to feel.
I love that. I think that probably just hits the nail on the head right there, which is the idea that you can grow and you can add a team and you can have other people responding, but as a leader, it's your job then to set the tone and to set the culture, so that even if it's not you behind the keyboard, it's still the values and the everything that you embody, so that the experience is the same, which is great. Evan, we've just got one more minute. And so knowing that we are freshly into 2018 and that you are talking with entrepreneurs all over the place every single day, what's one trend or shift that you're seeing when you talk to entrepreneurs that people should pay a little bit more attention to, perhaps in this new year?
Your story matters. Why you're doing this matters. People can buy whatever you're selling, likely from a big company with a brand name and reputation and history, and maybe pay more for it. But like, I hate competing on price as an entrepreneur. People buy from a smaller business because they feel the connection to you. Because I feel like when I'm working with you, if you're my coach or you're my accountant or you're my shoe salesperson, whatever, that you know me and you care about me. And a lot of entrepreneurs I find are afraid to tell their story because they think they're going to come off as egotistical. It's like, well, it's not about me. It's about the customers. I don't want to tell my story. You have to understand that the path for your customers to understand why you're doing this is really important. It has to be through you. Like it's the most selfless thing to tell your story. It's not an egotistical thing. You want to have a big impact on your customers, whether it's at scale or just one-on-one. You want them to feel special. Like you're starting this business for a reason. And so you don't have to be great in front of a camera. You don't have to, like, they're not, unless you're in the video business. If you're selling shoes, you don't have to be the greatest spokesperson on camera, but you should be able to tell your story, whether it's a video, whether it's just a written paragraph with your smiling picture. Just make me feel why your business is so important to me, or so important to you. Why did you start this? Why is this so passionate that you have deeply ingrained in what you're doing? Because if I feel that, then I will pay more to go with you, because I feel like you care where the other guys don't.
Evan, thank you so much for having this chat with me today. I think this was really fun. Again, I am Miranda. I am here from Thinkific.com, and we're helping people like many of you create and build businesses online with online education. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, Miranda.
Bye.